all seem to know things I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So there you go.
Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the QPR West London Sport Podcast. A bit of a change up in the lineup today with me in the hot seat. Dan's been a bit under the weather, so we're saving his throat. Also, I wasn't at the Norwich game last night due to be my wedding anniversary, and having dragged my missus to St Andrews on Friday, the prospect of going there. Carrow with QPR haven't won since 2008, and I think once in 28 years. A trip to the land of Alan Partridge wasn't received too well. So I've only just watched that this morning, so I will hand over to my esteemed gentlemen, Dan Bennett and Kevin Gallen, who will give a far more reasoned explanation about last night's 0-0 draw. So firstly, Kevin, a good point.
Yeah, very good point. Before the game, I would have definitely taken the draw. Norwich relegated from the Premier League. It's got some good players. Pookie, who we were just discussing off air there, talking about how no other club, and he's still not playing in the Premiership this season, scores goals in the Premier League and is a really good goal scorer in the Championship. And to come away with a 0-0 draw, I think is an excellent result. It stops sort of a little bit of a rot where we've lost the last two away games, Luton and Birmingham, and a good performance as well, and a very entertaining game. And it could have went either way. They could have went 1-0 up in the first half and Pookie hit the post. And then Willock comes on and makes an instant impact, hits the post. And then the ball comes back in. And to be fair, I don't really see how much more Lyndon Dykes can do. Heads it down. But I have to say, Angus Gunn makes an absolute tremendous save. And then at the end, they have a 1v1 and Senny DM makes a great save and then they hit the post at the end. So you definitely take the point. And come away with that and look forward to Saturday. So very good point against a team I think will be up there challenging at the end of the season if they keep all players fit and well. So yeah, very good point.
And Dan, we've talked about the importance of Senny Dinger numerous times on his podcast, but probably the first time really this season that they've kind of relied on him more so to get something out of a game.
Yeah, I think it just showed the importance of having a good goalkeeper. I mean, when I started covering QPR, it was when they had the kind of Joe Lumley, Liam Kelly rotation going on, and it was probably the biggest issue they had and the biggest kind of thing that held Mark Warburton's teams back in those early days was not having a settled goalkeeper. And then Senny Dieng came in and changed everything. And I think it just showed the importance, not just with the saves he makes, like, the standout ones, but with how confident he is. And he showed this season as well, just with his ability to come and claim crosses and just his calmness and composure, I think, is massive for QPR. And yeah, like you said, Kev, they did ride their luck a little bit at times. I think Pookie, probably 9 times out of 10, scores that chance in the first half, doesn't he? But QPR got a bit fortunate and then it come back off the post. And then, thankfully, the one chance at the end, if you're going to pick a Norwich player for that to fall to, I think you'd definitely pick Grant Hanley, wouldn't you, of all the players that you'd want that to fall to. So, rode their luck a bit at times. But like Kev said, I think it's a really good point. The only thing I sort of thought in the first half was, a lot of this is to do with the quality Norwich have and that they've got players that can hurt QPR. But maybe one of the disadvantages of the system they've played this season, and there's obviously a lot of advantages to it given how well they've done, but you do give up that bit of width. And I thought Norwich really exploited that in the first half down the flanks. You don't have sort of wingers to help out the fullback, and obviously you're relying on the fullbacks for width going forward. And I did think that Norwich did exploit that a bit in the first half, but saying that, second half, I thought QPR came out really well. Were really organised. I thought their organisation, Norwich had so much of the ball sort of in their own half and around the halfway line and just couldn't penetrate the gaps because QPR was so organised. But yeah, obviously relied a bit on a bit of luck from the goalpost and some good goalkeeping from Senny Dieng, but I think a really good point.
Yeah, I agree with you about the width. I thought Sam McCullough, who's obviously on loan at QPR last year, I thought he had a really good game for Norwich. Surprised I took him off, actually. I thought he was having a bit of joy down that flank. But
yeah, because I think he's like barely played, has he? Because obviously all the injury he had last year at QPR, and then I think they're like being really careful with him because he's just like not played any football. But yeah, he's really good, I thought, yeah.
I mean, on Friday up at St Andrews, it was the midfield got kind of overrun, I thought, a little bit. I I mean, we now know that Stefan Johansson was carrying an ankle injury, and really the game was lost effectively by half time at St Andrews. But the midfield was a lot better last night, I thought. Kevin, do you think that was, Norwich have much better players than Birmingham, but Rangers sort of competed better in the middle of the park? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's two reasons. I think we sort of packed the midfield out a little bit last night than before, than the Birmingham game. But I think it's different styles. I think Birmingham and a little bit against Luton, I think we got overrun in midfield, got overworked. They were more aggressive than us. The Luton and Birmingham midfield, really aggressive, in your face, closed down very well. Didn't let any of our midfielders have any time on the ball. And the game last night, you're playing against a technical Norwich team who have a different style of play, which suits QPR, playing against the Norwich. Very similar sort of style of play. Want to pass the ball on the floor, go through from the back to midfield to the front, and so on. Where Luton and Birmingham a little bit more direct, put the ball in behind, chase up against it. And if I'm playing against QPR in the future, I'm the opposition team, I'd be looking at the games of Birmingham and Luton and what they did to QPR to get some sort of result. And I think QPR need to improve on that, because I'm sure there's other clubs out there who, on their when they're going to play QPR, is like thinking, well, they're very technical in midfield. Have they got the real legs? Have they really got the real aggression to dig in away from home and have a scrap? There's no doubt, football-wise, QPR are as good as anyone in the league. It's whether or not we can scrap it out against teams who play a more aggressive, direct style of play.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Although I will say early in the season they beat Millwall, who play in that way, and also Sheffield United side who battered them in midfield in the games last season. But I mean, do you think that's just from the Birmingham game? Was it a case of just? I mean, there was some questionable refereeing as well, I will say, but it was just John Eustace just got his tactics right on the day.
Well, I don't know. I haven't really. I saw the game on TV, but I don't actually know how Birmingham play in general. But I would say that he might have seen the Luton game and thinking the way to beat QPR is to be really aggressive and get in your face and don't give them any time on the ball and maybe rough them up a little bit. There's no harm in that. I mean, I played in QPR teams and we've done that when you play against a better team. If you're playing against a team that have got better players, what do you do? I mean, you have to try and do something. You can't just let them play and let them have it all their own way. And the only way to do that is try and outwork them and be aggressive. So I think in the coming next few games, I'll be very. I would say the teams that we're playing will maybe try and adopt that sort of similar style of play, and QPR either have to match that from the off. Before QPR started a bit slow against Birmingham, then they started really fast, and have to match that intensity. And then, when I played football, it was always, especially we were playing a team that we thought we were better, and Jerry Francis and Ray Wilkins were managers. They always say, if you match them for work rate, our quality will come through in the end. And I'm sure Mick Beale will be saying that to the lads before every game. Match their work rate, match their endeavour, and in the end, our quality is better than theirs, and it should come out in the end. And I've heard that team talk so many times over the years when I was playing for QPR.
Yeah, and Tim Iroegbunam, Dan, man of the match on Sky last night. I thought he was one of the better players at St Andrews on Friday. I think we're starting to see, why Mick Beale brought him to QPR. He looks a real talent, and some of those mistakes he was making in his earlier games, he's still. There are still moments where they do happen, but they do seem to be kind of a bit less than what they were in his earlier games.
Yeah, he was brilliant last night, wasn't he? He was so good. He's got all the physical attributes you'd want in a midfielder. He's got the size, he's got the legs, the athleticism to get around the pitch, and he brings a bit of quality on the ball as well. But I think we spoke about it a few weeks back, saying how good he was, and then I think if he had that Luton game where he made the mistake, and we sort of spoke, Kev said about he's essentially learning on the job, isn't he? He's at QPR, sort of learning his trade. That's why Villa have sent him out there to kind of lessen those mistakes and try and cut those out a bit more. But yeah, he is going to make mistakes, isn't he? He's 19. He's like barely played any men's football, but I thought he was brilliant last night. And I think if he's fit, and by that I mean also that, you know, probably if there's like a 3-game week, he probably can't play all of them because he's not played enough men's football to be able to do that. But if he's available, I think he has to be in the team for what he gives you, even if he's, you know, he'll make a couple of mistakes in the game. I think that's just something you've got to accept, and because of what he brings you on the ball. Like, he was massive last night on that big Carrow Road pitch with his ability to drive the ball forward. There was a couple of times where he just picked the ball up in midfield and drove forward, which I think was massive for the team. So yeah, I've been really impressed by him, and I think Villa have got a really good player on their hands there and should be very excited about his future.
I know after the Luton game, Kev, you felt he looked a bit academy-like. Have you seen an improvement from that game?
I think he'll get better with game experience. I've said it many times. The best place to learn your trade is on the job in a match situation. I mean, you can train and get coached, and you get little pointers here and there, but game experience, match experience, crowd, intensity. I mean, you can't recreate intensity of a football match in training. It just doesn't happen. You think you might be training as hard, and if you play like a practice match, you think once you get into a stadium and a full house, the intensity, and with an atmosphere, the intensity just goes up 10%. So he'll improve. He'll learn from everything. He'll learn from his mistakes. And he had a really good game last night, and he was deservedly man of the match. And Dan was right. The big pitch suits him because once he's a very good athlete, isn't he? I mean, he can get around the pitch no problem. And those big pitches and that style of game suits him down to the ground.
I'll say I've played on the Carrow Road pitch before in my first job in journalism. We had a little kickabout on there, and I will say it is a big pitch, and I did not get around as well as Tim Iroegbunam did last night. I struggled to get around on it.
Yeah, and also the welcome return of Chris Willock as well. Come on, almost scored. QPR's probably best chance of a goal. It's a brilliant save from Angus Gunn to deny Lyndon Dykes. I mean, it was mentioned on the commentary that, and it's by JB McAnuff, I think it was, that it's just a case with Willock now. You just got to get him on the park regularly. That sort of, he's getting to a stage now where you get in danger of not becoming renowned as being injury prone, because he had played a lot of games before that injury last season. But in modern day football, the way that they treat injuries and that, they blood players in a bit more carefully than they probably did in your day, Kevin. Do you think that's been sort of helped though by QPR, being in pretty good form really in recent games? They've sort of taken their time to come back in, whereas had they been towards the bottom of the table, that might not have been the case.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also feel that the medical staff have a bigger influence these days than they did in my day. They have more power to sort of say, no, he's not ready. He can only play a certain amount of minutes, or etc. But it was a nice introduction for him, wasn't it? I mean, that sort of game, it suits Chris Willock. Nice pitch. The football was nice. It was a technical game, and he made an instant impact and goes past the player and a great drive and hits the post. A couple of inches to the other side, it's a goal, and it's like your talisman's back and up and running. Be interesting to see if he starts on Saturday against Huddersfield, or no, who's it? Who are we playing Saturday? West Brom. Sorry.
West Brom.
Interesting to see if he starts against West Brom, or they give him another half an hour or 40 minutes and then start him against Huddersfield on Tuesday. It'd be interesting. I would say, if I'm looking at it right now, it's Thursday, it was a Wednesday. I would say little warm down today, be doing stretching, not too much. Friday they'll train, but they don't train that hard before a game. It's more set pieces and a little, I don't know what they do, but in my day it was a little five-side. You train about 60%. And it'd be interesting to see if he plays on Saturday. I would say we come off the bench. I might be wrong. Come off the bench, impact, and then starts on Tuesday and then plays the last game against Coventry. Is that right? Away following week?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the medical team will have a lot of influence, and you have to be careful with these hamstring. I mean, I've talked about these hamstring injuries. Any slight bit of fatigue, and that hamstring can sort of just a little spasm or a little tear, and then you're out for another 3 or 4 weeks. And so you've got to be very careful with them. And you've got to be very careful with Chris Willock, because he is sort of the talisman and the best player at the moment. And you can see when he comes on, the lift he gives not only the players but the fans. And then I do believe Ilya's chair becomes a better player as soon as he gets on the pitch, and they start doing their little down that left side 1-2s and combination plays. So got to be very careful. Do we look at the bigger picture and just play him, half an hour in each game, and then he's got that big month off where he can get himself really right. So interesting and a big decision for the manager and the medical team to make.
That's what I was going to say, Kev. He's got that month break, haven't you? So maybe they'll be a little bit more minded to play him a bit more than they otherwise might have done, because he's got a month to get himself right. So, but at the same time, you don't want to risk it too much and risk re-injuring. But yeah, like, he never really missed a game, did he? Off the top of my head, before that big hamstring injury last year, and obviously that kept him out for a while. And then there's been some complications from that. But Kev, I got a stat for you, because I know you like stats and you always ask me to look them up. But basically, Chris Willock seems to have broken the XG model. So I heard it on Sky last night. I went and looked it up for myself. So his expected goals this season are 1.1. So that's how many goals you would expect him to score based on the chances he gets. And he scored 6. Because, all the chances and the goals he scores are from the edge of the box, long range strikes. It's like, that's what Mick Beale was saying about XG, wasn't it? It's like, it doesn't tell you who's getting the chance. So like, that chance typically isn't a very good one, but for Willock, it's actually a really good one because he's so good at them. But yeah, so he's actually scored 6 goals and he should have only scored 1.
Yeah, well, we spoke about this at the start, maybe in September. I said you can't keep relying on Chris Willock and Ilya's chair to score worldies.
Can you though?
But then he is, so. But can you continue that for the rest of the season? So wait and see.
Coming old Luddite. This is why I think it's a lot of old hogwash, XG.
I think it's useful.
I don't know what he was talking about XG until he just said the last bit.
I think it's good for telling you how many, like, the quality of chance you're typically creating, but I think it's got a lot of.
It's good for FIFA computer games.
I'll get my son on. I'll get my boy on the case. He'll tell me what it's all about.
But just on a serious note, Kev, do you wish when you were playing that there was this kind of input from medical staff about when players can't play, or do you think that as a player you just want to go out and play?
Well, it's a bit of both, really. I think the medical. I'm jealous of the medical teams that clubs have now, and rehab. And I pulled my hamstring 10, 15 times in my career, which is a hell of a lot. And you sort of get rushed back and you think you're okay, and then it will go again. And where they'd be saying, no, pulling you back, but giving you proper rehab. The rehab was ours, because in the days was, especially in the early 90s, mid-90s, we had one physio. So if you had a hamstring injury, there might be another 6 or 7 injuries in the treatment room. You probably get treated for half an hour, and then you get sent to the gym and do what you want, where there was no structure. And there's a lot of structure in place, and there's a lot of it's only to the end of my career where you started doing, it was a word called prehab instead of rehab. Rehabilitation, prevention of injuries, and all the football players and all the lads would be doing prevention of injuries every day in the gym before they go out to train. And that's not just at QPR, that's at every football club.
Word of the week.
Prehab, yes. Unless Ian comes up with something more. But no, so yeah, look, footballers want to get out there and play. Well, I did anyway. And if you thought you were okay, you could sort of convince yourself you're okay. But then once you do that first sprint and the ball goes behind you and you're not thinking about it and your hamstring tightens up, you're like, why don't I should have given it another week. And now I'm back to square one. I'm 4 weeks away again. So there's good and the bad, but I think mainly the medical departments in football clubs, well, they're a million miles ahead of what it was in the 90s. A million miles away. Ahead of me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look ahead to Saturday's game, the last Saturday home game before the World Cup break. And we see a West Brom side coming to town who, personally, I think are in a massively false position. They've got far too many good players to be sort of in the bottom three. Dan, a game that potentially has danger written all over it?
Yeah, I think so. I watched West Brom on Wednesday because they played Blackpool on TV. It's probably the worst game I've seen for some time. Absolutely dreadful. I mean, I wasn't impressed by West Brom, but I was even less impressed by Blackpool, I've got to say. But yeah, like you look at their squad on paper, they got Jed Wallace, who's been one of the best players in the Championship over the last few years. John Swift, who I think, had he not had all the injury problems in his career, he'd probably be playing in the Premier League. And he had a really good season for Reading last year, which obviously got him the move to West Brom. And you kind of look at the business they did in the summer and you think that they'd be up there pushing for promotion. For whatever reason, it's just gone completely wrong. And obviously Steve Bruce is out now. Probably lasted a little bit longer than I think most expected him to. They've got a new manager come in Carlos Corberán, who did a very good job at Huddersfield. And I think, he's a really good manager. So I think that will give him a bit of new lease of life. But yeah, I watched on Wednesday. I wasn't really very impressed, to be honest. They didn't really create enough. I don't know if it's just because of all these games coming up ahead of the World Cup that maybe fatigue was a factor, but it was a really poor game and they didn't have much impetus considering they are where they are and they're playing a bottom half side at home. I expected a bit more from them, but yeah, they are dangerous, with the new manager coming in and the players they've got. So I think, yeah, it is a potential. I mean, you say this a lot, but it is a potential banana skin, I think. But QPR just got to go out and start on the front foot and be really aggressive because they're not the most confident side in the world for obvious reasons. That they are where they are. So I think if QPR can really get at them early, that's the way they're going to go and win this one. They can't give them too much respect.
I mean, they look to me on the outside. I haven't seen them play this season, but John Swift, Rogic, Jake Livermore, all these players, they're technically good players, but you wouldn't say any of them particularly mobile. And I think our Rangers beat West Brom last year at Loftus Road. Willock was outstanding in that game, but I think just moving them around and sort of having a bit more pace, and I think the fullbacks could come into this. Do you see that as well, Kev? Sort of the pace of QPR could be where they beat West Brom.
Yeah, I think a fast start, high intensity start is vital for QPR to win this game. They're obviously not in good form because their position dictates that, but they have got some good players, and Dan's right. Jed Wallace was for the last 3 or 4 seasons excellent for Millwall, very good player, and John Swift on his day. So they have got players.
2 players that always score against QPR as well.
Yeah, I know. So I'm sure they'll be fancying this game. They've just come off a win at Blackpool, which, look, no disrespect, Dan, it's Blackpool.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
You know what I mean?
QPR can beat him.
Yeah. And it's QPR podcast, by the way. They've come off a good win, so morale will be higher than what it has been. So I think it's a tough game. They've got good quality. You're right about saying they haven't got the mobility. QPR's a tighter pitch. It's not the Hawthorns, bigger pitch than QPR. So that might suit them a little bit. But we need a fast start. Like you say, it's going to be a big crowd because it's the last Saturday. And last Saturday before the break, I think it'd be a good atmosphere. They'll bring some fans. They're a big club. Tough game, real tough game. And it is a bit of a potential banana skin, but I'm going to go 2-1 QPR. I think just a bit of momentum and the atmosphere around the club is sort of, even though we didn't play well against Wigan, we ground out that result very well. And I think there'll be more of the same on Saturday. So I think I'm going to go 2-1 QPR.
Dan?
Thanks for letting me go first. I'm going to be slightly more pessimistic. I think it might be a draw. I don't know why. I just got that sneaky suspicion. I think West Brom do lack a bit up top as well. I was just looking then because I forgot they'd got Daryl DK, for They think they signed him last January. They cost about 8 million. I think he must be injured at the moment because he's
he is.
Yeah, he's like not been in sight. I mean, Carl and Grant has like really struggled this season, so they do lack goals a bit. But yeah, I think it will be quite tough. I think they'll have to take a bit of confidence from that result on Wednesday. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very tough game. I think Rangers coming off a very difficult game at Norwich. There's a lot of energy expended in that. West Brom got the extra day after beating Blackpool. But Rangers are at home. They've been pretty decent at home the last few weeks. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, QPR. I think it'll be tight. 1-0 win. And I am going to go for Rob Dickey to score the winner.
We're adding things to the predictions now. No, giving you the power to host, taking it to another level.
He's due a goal. Is that right?
Yeah.
He hasn't scored, has he? Yeah.
Not sure. Not since he had that mad spell at the start of last season, didn't he? Where he scored like 3 goals in 3 or whatever. I don't know what it was, but he went on a mad run where he kept scoring. So
the Championship is such a tight division. Any team can beat any. I mean, I was talking to my friends about this, the QPR friends, about, you score the first goal, you've got a real good chance of winning and definitely of not losing. But you take that, there's so many different things that happens in a game. If, like last night, if Pookie scores last night, they probably go on to win the game. He doesn't. Willock doesn't go in, and then the momentum turns and the tide changes, and it's like the game against Blackpool at home. Dykes misses that sitter. If he scores that, I'm pretty sure QPR go and win the game. So it really is every game is so tough to predict, and if you're not bang on it, every player you can come unstuck. Such a tight.
There's not much difference between the teams now in the Championship for me. Like the teams that are in the bottom half at the moment, and you look at the teams that are like in and around the playoffs, like it's so close. There's not much, like we said before, there's no like Fulham this year. Like I think Burnley will personally go up and end up winning the league by a decent. I don't know if they're top at the moment. I might be right, but
looking that way, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they come back and beat Rotherham last night, which is a really good win. So, but yeah, there's no like standout team, and there's a lot of teams that could get into the playoffs, and there's a lot of teams that could get sucked into the sort of bottom of the table relegation. I really don't think there's much difference at all. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's a great league, like to watch and to see it unfold, because you really don't know what's going to happen until you sort of get in and around March, April time, which I think Beale, like he said before, is like that's the aim for QPR, is just to be in the mix around that time, because they were last year, and then obviously all started to go wrong, so you can't really get too ahead of yourself, can you?
Yeah, you look at the table and you see West Brom and Middlesbrough down near the bottom. Both been their managers off before the clocks change, and it's crazy, really, because they're another team, Middlesbrough, are in a false position, I think. So it makes the league very, very difficult to predict. But anyway, well, thanks for joining us. In addition to watching us on YouTube, we're also available on other platforms, iTunes, Spotify, and other places where you can get your podcasts. So thanks for joining us, and we shall see you again next week.